Tonight, relief for motorists. The federal government tipped to cut the tax on petrol in tomorrow's budget.
We've designed a suite of measures to address those cost of living issues.
Also tonight, the Premier Daniel Andrews tests positive to COVID-19. Oscars controversy as Best Actor winner Will Smith hits out at comedian Chris Rock.
Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
And holding the ball, Lance Franklin reunited with a precious part of his history-making goal.
To receive the ball back means the world to me.
Good evening. Tamara O'Dine with ABC News. Transport projects spread across every state and territory are the latest targets to be sprayed with cash in the countdown to tomorrow's budget. Airports, road and rail will soak up billions of dollars, but it's handouts to voters that'll come with the hardest sell once the Morrison government reveals all the details in just over 24 hours from now. Here's political editor Andrew Probyn.
Have truck, must ride it.
Hey, Joey. Hello. We're running down the Western Sydney Airport runway.
Scott Morrison looking for a budget takeoff on tarmac funded by federal taxpayers.
Very smooth ride.
All part of a near $18 billion infrastructure program.
We are building a stronger Australia, airport by airport, road by road, rail by rail.
There's even more money for the controversial commuter car parks program. Located in Liberal-held or target seats, all were promised at the last election, but are still not built.
The cost adjustments for commuter car parks, as you put it, account for 0.3% of that $17.9 billion.
Labor accusing the PM of driving the pre-election pork barrel express.
This Prime Minister only holds a hose if it's spraying borrowed money on the eve of an election.
The central feature of the budget, a bundle of cost of living goodies. One-off payments of at least $250 for pensioners and welfare recipients, families and millions of low and middle income earners to also receive some help.
What we recognise is the great pressure that Australian families and small businesses are under right around the country.
To tackle sky-high prices at the petrol pump, the 44 cents a litre federal fuel tax will be temporarily trimmed.
No government can fix it. You can mitigate it, you can mollify it.
Even the Nationals leader, a one-time opponent of cutting fuel excise, is now on board. But it'll be very expensive, $2 billion for every 10 cents it's slashed, and that's just for 6 months.
Australians will be quite rightly cynical about this government's motives and how fair dinkum they are.
The government will argue the fuel excise cut will mean less pain at the bowser, while also taking some heat out of inflation, which is set to soar within months. But if wages don't keep up, many workers will continue to go backwards. Tomorrow's budget will be firmly aimed at winning short-term favour, with an election to be called within days. Andrew Probyn, ABC News, Canberra.
The Premier is in isolation after testing positive to COVID-19. Daniel Andrews says he took a rapid antigen test before work after developing a sore throat and mild temperature. His wife and children have all tested negative, but will also be in isolation for 7 days as close contacts. Last week, Mr Andrews attended a statue unveiling for late music producer Michael Gudinski and the premiere of the stage musical Hamilton. The positive result means the Premier will miss the memorial service for Shane Warne on Wednesday evening. Deputy Premier James Merlino will step into the role of acting Premier until next Monday. Russia and Ukraine will hold a new round of peace talks this week. The Ukrainian president has signalled he's open to making some concessions, including declaring a neutral status for his nation. But he says that any compromise must begin with a ceasefire and the withdrawal of Russian troops. Tonight we have correspondents in the western city of Lviv. We begin our coverage with Isabella Higgins.
Valentina never imagined she would open the door of her home to this. She has lived in Mariupol her entire life, but now she has nothing left. When fighting for control of the strategic port city started, she hid in the basement of her apartment block.
We got married here and had babies. What now? What is left for us? I don't want to go anywhere from Mariupol, but there's nowhere here to live.
Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv in the east, is also in ruins. It's too late to rescue anyone here. Firefighters are just searching for bodies. The Ukrainian government says more than 4,400 residential buildings have been destroyed in this war so far. That's over 100 a day. The president says he is prepared to discuss adopting a neutral status for Ukraine as part of a peace deal with Russia. He was speaking to independent Russian journalists who were ordered by the Kremlin not to publish the interview.
Security guarantees and neutrality, non-nuclear status of our state. We are ready to go for it. This is the most important point.
Firefighters in the western city of Lviv battled for 13 hours to extinguish the blaze at a fuel depot hit by Russian missiles. The attack was the closest to the centre of this safe haven for hundreds of thousands of refugees.
If Russian airstrikes in this region were designed to instigate fear or to force more people to flee, well, it hasn't worked entirely. Lviv city centre is bustling. People are playing music and games of chess in the square. Many are more determined than ever to find a moment of joy in the midst of war.
With the war now in its second month, those moments are becoming even more rare.
There's constant bombing here in Ukraine, so it affects me because this is my country. No city in this country is safe now.
Fear and uncertainty for an entire nation waiting for peace talks to start again. Isabella Higgins, ABC News, Lviv.
Russia's invasion has forced half of Ukraine's children to flee their homes. More than 4 million have been displaced so far. Schools have had to be turned into shelters, but teachers are working hard to still deliver lessons online. Correspondent Barbara Miller reports from Lviv.
About 1,000 students are enrolled at the Vyacheslav Chornovil school in Lviv, but none of them are here now. Many of its classrooms now bedrooms for those fleeing war with nowhere else to go.
My eyes are full of tears because it's very unusual. I know my pupils, I know every place, every desk where they sit, where they communicate with each other.
The school canteen is still open, now serving evacuees.
It's very unusual to see these people. They are nervous, they are shocked, they are afraid of war.
So let's start, please. But school is not out. The refugee kids are taking lessons, hooking up online with the regular students who are now learning from home.
My name is Karina. I'm 9 years old. I'm from Zaporizhia and I'm in year 3.
Like so many of the rooms in this school, the sports hall has also been repurposed. It's a place to store the many donations flooding in and for painstaking work in support of the war effort.
PE classes have been moved to the hallway. Getting in-person instruction today, 9-year-old Andriy from Kyiv. We came to Lviv by train, he says. We were travelling for 12 hours. Outside of the lessons, there's little to do for Andriy, far from home and all he knows. A fate faced by so many of Ukraine's kids. In a month of war, almost half of them are now thought to have been displaced.
It's not just about the curriculum getting it online, it's about what sort of education do kids need who are traumatised, who have been separated from their dad, who are now living in an entirely different city.
No one knows how long this will all last.
Lots of people ask me if it's hard for me to be doing this at such a difficult time, but it's not really difficult because we have such a good team and we all pitch in.
Staff here are working 7 days a week, doing everything they can to give these kids a chance. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Lviv.
The Morrison government denies it's dropped the ball in the Pacific, but warns China is trying to intimidate Australia by pushing for a military presence in Solomon Islands. A leading politician from the tiny nation claims he tried repeatedly to warn our diplomats about Beijing's plans to establish a strategic foothold there. Here's Defence correspondent Andrew Green.
Barely 18 months has passed since China's flag was first officially raised in Honiara. Ever since this tiny Pacific nation sensationally switched allegiances from Taipei to Beijing, the pace of Chinese activity has stunned locals.
Me a little bit worried. I'm a bit worried because people are talking about this, and I understand that China is a communist country.
My worry is that it will create a clash with countries we already have security ties with before.
A draft security deal which could soon see Chinese forces stationed in Solomon Islands is causing particular concern.
This was in the offing even as far back as last year.
The country's opposition leader claims he warned of a looming Chinese military presence as far back as last August, but was ignored by diplomats.
The Australian government did nothing about it, so I'm extremely disappointed in the Australian government.
Did we drop the ball on this?
Absolutely not, and we've been aware of the risks right across the Pacific.
We continue to alienate our friends in the Pacific.
Australia insists it's taking the matter seriously and is in no doubt over what's at stake.
Trying to, restrict our capacity of movement and intimidate us.
Allies across the ditch also alarmed.
I'm deeply concerned by the developments that we're hearing and seeing in the Pacific.
Jacinda Ardern and Scott Morrison spoke at the weekend and discussed the Chinese Security Pact. Officials from both nations are continuing efforts to stop the agreement from going ahead, knowing similar deals could be struck in the region. Andrew Green, ABC News, Canberra.
The late Labor Senator Kimberley Kitching has been remembered as a friend, patriot and warrior in a tearful parliamentary tribute. As loved ones watched on, the Senate held a special sitting with politicians across the divide expressing their condolences for Senator Kitching, who died suddenly this month at the age of 52. Senator Kitching was a long-time player in the bitterly contested factional politics of Victorian Labor. Labor's Senate leadership team has denied bullying and excluding Senator Kitching, but acknowledged the claims in their tributes.
I've made my views very clear outside this place about some of that misplaced anger and blame. I will not return anger with anger or blame with blame.
Labor leader Anthony Albanese has repeatedly ruled out an investigation into the claims of bullying and mistreatment. Deaf family drama Coda has won Best Picture at the Oscars, but the Academy Awards were overshadowed by on-stage drama, with Will Smith hitting comedian Chris Rock over a joke about his wife before going on to win Best Actor.
Oh, wow! It could have been a movie fight scene, but this was Will Smith unscripted and unleashing.
Will Smith just smacked out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth! The actor furious at Chris Rock's joke about his wife's hair.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it, all right?
But in a twist meant for the movies, less than an hour later, Smith was back on stage, delivering an emotional acceptance speech for his portrayal of Serena and Venus Williams' father in King Richard.
I want to apologise to the Academy. I want to apologise to all my fellow nominees. Art imitates life. I look like the crazy father, just like they said. I look like crazy father, just like they said about Richard Williams. But love will make you do crazy things.
Deaf family drama Coda took home 3 Oscars, Best Picture, Writing and Supporting Actor.
This is dedicated to the deaf community, the CODA community and the disabled community. This is our moment.
It was a ceremony heralding inclusion.
A queer, openly queer woman of color and Afro-Latina who found her strength in life through art.
We believe that the role of story is to remind us that there is no us and them, there's just us.
Other big winners included Best Actress Jessica Chastain, New Zealand-born and Australian-trained director Jane Campion, and science fiction epic Dune, which took home 6 Oscars, including Best Cinematography, awarded to Australian Greg Fraser. But it was that one mad moment that stole the show on a Stranger Than Fiction night.
Will Smith said it all. What more can be said? Let's have peace and love and quiet.
Annie Kearney, ABC News.
Thank you.
Still to come this hour, why the next flood disaster could be even worse.
We're now facing disasters of a scale that you just can't plan for.
If there wasn't these guys coming around, the death toll would have been, I don't know. I'd hate to think.
I think a lot more people would have died, and I think it would have been a much bigger disaster than it was.
Plus, Laura Tingle explains the government's budget dilemma. That's coming up.
Well, a man has died and another is missing after heavy rain caused fresh flooding in southeast Queensland. The man was found dead inside his ute, which had become trapped in floodwaters near Toowoomba. A woman rescued from the ute is being treated in hospital. Further south, a search is underway for a man in his 40s who was swept away after getting out of his car on a flooded road. Child welfare departments have the responsibility of keeping at-risk kids in Australia from falling through the cracks. But desperate caseworkers say those cracks are now craters and more children than ever are being left in unsafe situations. Breaking protocol, child protection workers have spoken to the ABC calling for change. Alison Costello has the story.
Well, when I was in the Northern Territory, I'd only been a social worker for about a year. I sort of thought I was going to be allocated kids that were in placements, check if they were okay.
That's Natalie. Speaking of the time she was a fresh-faced social worker in the Northern Territory.
Well, I walked in and they said, no, I think you're going to be better off in the investigations team, and here's 107 investigations that we've received, and I need you to prioritise those and identify children that might be at risk of death.
One case Natalie was involved with concerned 2 children, one aged 3, the other 12 months. They were taken into care, but then they were returned home.
Well, we hadn't been able to put appropriate support in place, and then within a few months we were flying these children back, one with a cracked skull and one with a broken arm. We knew that stuff had happened to them and we'd sent them back and subjected them to further harm.
Not long after she began, Natalie left the profession.
I'm sure that there are probably decisions that I made that were not correct. Children left in situations that probably shouldn't have been, and children who were removed that shouldn't have been.
It's against the code of conduct for child protection workers to speak out. But the people in this story have because they're desperate, saying they don't get the resources or the funding to back up their goodwill and their genuine desire to help children in need.
2 young girls that I know of over a period of 2 months talked about a family member of theirs who'd been inappropriately touching them.
Andrew is a children's caseworker in Western Australia. He starts at 7:30 in the morning and finishes at 6 at night.
Given the staffing levels and the inability to be out there and the lack of resources to put around them, these children have been jumping up and down saying, hey, this is happening, this is happening. I imagine it would have felt like nobody was listening because they were still with this family member that had done this to them.
It's a system that, while it's in place to try and improve outcomes for children, it's actually causing a lot of further trauma. It's not working.
What we would have said 10 years ago was the highest risk. Now becomes more of a, yes, we'll do that in 2 or 3 days.
A Queensland woman who lives with cerebral palsy has told the Royal Commission into Violence, Abuse, Neglect and Exploitation of People with Disability she thought she was going to die after she was raped and bashed. Chloe, as she's known to the inquiry, had her evidence read to the hearing.
I'm scared to be in my own house because he raped me in my bedroom, my lounge room and the kitchen, and I can't move without help. I'm scared he's going to come back to my house and kill me.
Chloe's attacker was found not guilty by a jury. The Commission is sitting in Hobart for 5 days to examine the issue of violence against women and girls. And if you or someone you know needs help, please contact 1800 RESPECT by phone or via their website, or Lifeline on 131114. China's biggest city, Shanghai, has entered a phased lockdown as COVID cases there hit record levels. The financial hub of 26 million people has been split in half under snap measures to allow for mass testing. Eastern areas are subject to the stay-at-home orders first. Restrictions in the western zone will take effect on Friday. Daily infections in the city have hit 3,500 and a convention centre has been set up as a quarantine site for mild and asymptomatic cases. This is China's worst outbreak since coronavirus first emerged more than 2 years ago. The government there is still pursuing a zero COVID strategy. To finance now, and the Australian dollar continued its march higher today, but the local share market was flat. Here's Alan Kohler.
Well, there's an old investment saying attributed to Nathan Rothschild in 1810 during the Napoleonic Wars. He said, buy on the sound of cannons, sell on the sound of trumpets, which is a pithy way of saying that wars are good for share prices. And it's certainly worked this time so far. And it's been good for the Australian dollar as well. Since the invasion of Ukraine began on February 24th, the share market is up 6.3% and the dollar 5%. The only problem is that wars might have been good for shares when Napoleon was running amok, but since then they've been bad. So we'll see. Wars are mostly inflationary though, and this one certainly is, with energy and commodity prices all rising, with the results that interest rates are also on the rise, which is another way of saying the prices of fixed interest securities, like government bonds, are crashing, which may be one reason share prices are rising. The owners of government bonds are buying shares instead. The dollar was up a bit to 75.2 US cents today and continues to make new 7-year highs against the falling yen. The share market was dead flat, with banks and miners up, CSL and Telstra down, and Sydney casino operator Star Entertainment was up a little after CEO Matt Beckier cashed in his chips. Stocks in Tokyo and Shanghai fell slightly, while in Hong Kong they went up 1%. On commodity markets, oil fell, iron ore went up, and nickel is still trying to settle down. And that's finance.
Sydney Swans player Lance Franklin has been reunited with the ball he used to kick his 1,000th AFL career goal. As National Sport reporter David Mark explains, a Swans fan returned the ball today after revelling in his weekend of fame.
In the pandemonium of this moment, one man was at the epicentre of tens of thousands of adoring fans, and another had just got his hands on the souvenir of a lifetime. Today, Buddy got his ball back.
There you go, mate. Awesome. Beautiful, mate. These are for you.
And he had a chance to reflect on that moment.
I absolutely loved it. It was a really special night to see so many Swan supporters out here, especially with what happened the last couple of years with COVID.
And despite the fears of a crush, Franklin said he never felt unsafe.
I was lapping it up, to be honest with you. When I kicked the 100 goals in 2008, at that stage I was very young, and I thought if I ever got to the 1,000 goals, I'm really going to enjoy it.
As for the man who caught the ball...
Yes, I went head over biscuit straight onto the head, and, it hurt my head, but, I had about 100 agents working for me on Saturday afternoon telling me what to do.
Obviously it was a special moment, but for me, I think it's something that I'll look back on when I do finish my career and be even more proud of.
This is the spot where Lance Franklin kicked his 1,000th goal. It means he's done just about everything there is to do in football except win a premiership with his beloved Swans. And who knows, this could be the year. As for retirement at the age of 35, he says he's not even thinking about it. Asked today whether that means he could play on until he can't, he had one word in reply.
Totally.
And that will bring joy to most footy fans. David Mark, ABC News.
Australian all-rounder Elise Perry says she'd be happy to play as a batter only in Wednesday's World Cup semi-final against the West Indies in Wellington. Perry suffered back spasms in last week's game against South Africa and missed the following match against Bangladesh. With a batting average of 50, Perry is likely to be included even if she can't bowl.
If I can contribute in a really positive way and add to the team by being in it, absolutely. I'd just love to be a part of it, but it's probably not my call.
South Africa has booked a semi-final against England with a thrilling last ball win over India. Newly crowned A-League Women's champions Melbourne Victory have returned home after a stunning grand final win in Sydney yesterday. Despite entering the decider as underdogs, Victory beat Premiers Sydney FC 2-1 to win their second consecutive championship. Goalkeeper Casey Dumont, who battled through sickness, was awarded Player of the Match after making a number of crucial saves. Dumont returned to victory this season after overcoming an Achilles injury and other health problems.
Getting Player of the Match was just another bonus on top, that all that hard work to come back and play and all those times that I had to get back up, that this is what it's all for.
Victory head coach Jeff Hopkins is now the most successful coach in the history of the competition with 4 championship wins. For new arrivals into Australia, getting to know your neighbours living down the street or in the same apartment block can be pivotal in building a new life in a new country. That's particularly true for one family who recently fled Afghanistan for a new life in Adelaide.
It's dinner time and the Nazari family's cooking up a feast. On the menu, traditional Afghan curry, corn and bread, a spread for their neighbours.
We are very new in this country and we want to know lots of people, talk to people.
The family fled Afghanistan last year when the Taliban took control. Unable to make it out of Kabul airport, they travelled to Pakistan and on to Australia.
Suddenly the situation completely changed and it was very dangerous for us.
It was difficult and stressful leaving behind their country, family and friends for a place where they barely knew a soul. They found a new home at Christie Walk, a CBD community where neighbours share more than just facilities.
It's been an absolute delight having them here and it's been a learning experience all round. I've been trying to learn Persian while they're learning English.
She's just like grandmother for my daughter.
The celebration is part of Neighbour Day, an annual event that has grown to more than 100 dinners and street parties across the country.
Things like Neighbour Day is such an important way to get to know those people that are living around you, either in the same street or apartment block or in the same sort of development like this.
One of the great things about neighbourhoods is that we can foster that sense of belonging and create welcome when there are new people moving in.
So day by day, this family starts to feel better about the future. Evelyn Manfield, ABC News, Adelaide.
Now with the weather, here's Paul Higgins.
Thank you, Tam, and happy birthday.
Oh, why, thank you.
OK. Well, smoky skies made for a stunning sunrise today, just like this, but that smell of smoke in the air was a bit disconcerting for some. It's coming from planned burns or fuel reduction burning outside the Melbourne metro area and in particular around Healesville. Autumn's one of the best times for burning as the weather is settled and winds are light. But sometimes the smoke gets trapped under a temperature inversion. That happened over Melbourne this morning. The smoke will dissipate as that wind strengthens. Well, it was mild overnight across most of the state, with only the Alps falling below 10 degrees. Showers and some thunderstorms sprang up this afternoon over parts of the east, especially across the ranges this afternoon. 32 millimetres falling at Stringybark Creek. Up as high as 32 degrees at Mildura, but cooler in the southwest with an early cool change. Well, a sunny afternoon in Melbourne. Once the change had gone through, we reached 24.4 at 2:19 this afternoon, but by 4 o'clock it was 21, and right now outside it is 19. More soaking rain in southeast Queensland. 96 millimetres has fallen since midnight on the Gold Coast. A deepening coastal trough has northern New South Wales on high alert for flooding rain tonight. For us, we had this weak pressure trough crossing the state. Now, a high will ridge over Victoria tomorrow, so a settled day. But then on Wednesday, see that cold front down there? That's going to herald a spell of cooler southerly winds. But along the New South Wales north coast, they're bracing for up to 200 millimetres of rain on already saturated soil. Brisbane will have easing rain. In Sydney, thunderstorms and showers. Late showers for Canberra and Hobart, and a few showers across in Perth. Back home, a shower or two tonight in southern and eastern parts, and again tomorrow in the south. Not much there, as you can see. Morning fog will be mostly forming in the south, and then a partly cloudy day south of the Divide, but mostly sunny in the north and warmer. 31 at Shepparton, light southerly winds. On the bay, a south to southeast wind at 10 knots, tending southerly to 15 knots in the afternoon. Well, down to 15 in Melbourne tonight, 22 tomorrow. Low cloud or fog in the morning, and a slight chance of a shower in our north. Then sunny breaks as the afternoon afternoon goes on, a southerly breeze. Windy on Wednesday, a fresh southerly, the chance of a late shower 20. Thursday, still a chance of a shower 20. To kick off April, a partly cloudy Friday and 20. Still 20 on Saturday with the chance of a shower, then partly cloudy and 22 both Sunday and Monday, Tam.
Thank you, Paul. That's it for this evening's bulletin. Lee Sales is up next with 7:30.